Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome 2025. It's the beginning of January of 2025 here in Ellensburg, Washington, USA. A shot out the window helps you see that we have fluffy white stuff falling, and we will have up to 4 inches in the next 24 hours here in Ellensburg. Welcome to you all. The local time is 11:47 a.m. and today's date is Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. Thank you for the 5x5 reports. I usually just glance and look for a few of those numbers, which means loud and clear, and those that are in the habit of doing that regularly, thank you. It's been a while since I've thanked you specifically, but it's helpful so that I don't have to spend 20 minutes like, are we okay? Are we functional? We're past those days, I think. So, hello. It is live here on approaching midday, and it's so pleasant to be back with you after 5 days of being away. Can I say hi to a number of you? Where are you viewing from today? Portland, Oregon. Hello. There's Pat the pilot from Natchez, Washington. Lake Tapps, Washington. Victorville, California. Hello, Jim. Pearland, Texas. That's RK. Svensen, Hamlin, Germany. Hello. Philomath, Oregon. There's Kirk. Jocelyn says hello from Quebec, Canada. Saber's down there in Baja. Brian E. is in Vancouver, Washington, outside of Portland, Oregon. I'm down to live against my will. Julie Wake, Happy New Year from Ellensburg. Hello, Julie. Regine says bon année from France. Marianne says Roy, Utah, very matter-of-factly. Colin is in Mission Hills, Los Angeles, California. Garrett is in the Netherlands. Hello, Garrett. Happy New Year. Still down to live. Don's in Fairbanks, where it is minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, Don. That seems about right. I'm going to the women's basketball game here on campus tonight. I'm a big fan of that program, basketball here on campus, and we are playing your team from Fairbanks tonight, Alaska Fairbanks. They're in town, 7 p.m. local time. You got to love it. Rachel is in Plain, Washington. Hello, Rachel. John is in Kalkaska, Michigan. Oh, that's Jay, sorry. Kirk says, please, Sweden, Valentina and Kirk. Hello, Jim's in Chico, California. Rick is in Escondido, California, but he's vacationing there. He's originally from Amity, Oregon. Plenty of information there. Lindsay Malone, go Wildcats. Lindsay, did you go to school here? Bob is in Kamloops, BC. Mr. Morlock is from Lava Hot Springs in Idaho. I remember going down to Lava back in my courting days, visiting Liz and hanging out with Liz in Pocatello. Liz is doing very well, by the way. Thank you for your continued good wishes. It's just the two of us now at home for a little while. Elaine in Tucson, Arizona. The reference librarian from Spokane. Every time I can't remember your name. So embarrassing. I'm sorry. Ian is deep in the Chuckanut. Rockin' Lady is in Forest Grove, Oregon. Gary A. is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Today is going to be heavy with backcountry Gary Paul, so I hope he can at least visit with us briefly from the parking lot. I'm guessing he's skiing today. There's snow all over the place. Just a guess. Kay says, hello, world. Nina is in, Nina is saying hi to another Nina from Norway, I believe. Maybe Sweden. Jimbo, Casual Observer, says hello from Ephrata, Washington. Rick Hickerson says, I'm finally caught up to live, but we'll have to do Saturday in replay as I'll be driving home to Amity. Yes, many of you I have noticed have been slowly getting yourself caught up, and that makes sense. It's been a busy time, and I have not taken a break. So Special thanks to those of you who have been wanting to get caught up with the series so that you can join us live and have taken the time to watch the episodes in order. It's not required, but it's encouraged. It's encouraged. Nancy and Freddie in Dallas, Texas. Hello, all. I want to keep going. This feels too good. This feels too good. You want another shot of the snow? Those that don't deal with snow, I mean, it's not heavy snow or anything like that. I don't think it's going to be heavy. And there's Shelf Cam with all the Kirk from Philomath paraphernalia. The Move a Globe is back to functioning beautifully now that it's on the windowsill. If you remember last winter, it was having trouble on the shelf, so I don't know what that's about. But anyway, the Globe loves the window view, I guess. I'm sure you have an answer for that. Tim and Joan are in Bend, Oregon. That's a beautiful area. Perry Brassington, otherwise known as Mundi Verator, checking in live from Bali at 4 a.m. Hello, Perry/Mundi. Thank you for your... Are you having trouble sleeping tonight? Or did you literally set your alarm to join us live at 4 in the morning in Bali? I love that kind of stuff. I love the visual. In fact, there's somebody I'm going to share with you late today from the UK, and he showed me a little video clip of him watching one of our episodes in his living room somewhere in the United Kingdom. And for some reason, that was powerful. I know people watch these a long way away, but to actually be in someone's living room and see the TV and have me talking to Aaron Donaghy with a little video clip is just like, wow, this really does happen in other countries. And I'll make sure to get to that point about why that gentleman, why Stephen sent me that video clip. It's not a great story. Brett in Smyrna, Washington. Hey, Brett. That's a cool area right there at Crab Creek. Smyrna Bench. Sunlight Waters. We got a lot of really local people here in the Kittitas County and Grant County. Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to take a little walk in the snow. I need to do a little bit of hot mic, which is, I'm calling things back from past alphabets, which people seem to really like. I don't even remember why I started doing hot mic. I remember it was back a couple winters ago when I was still setting up chalkboards every time we did one of these letters in the auditorium. And I would pace back and forth behind the chalkboards and talk to myself. I don't know why I started that, but some people really love hearing my pep talks to myself. I don't know why. I can guess why, but I don't really know why. Anyway, I've brought that back on purpose because so many people have wanted it back. And I'll say another thing, that we're back to video clips again today showing some beautiful places, and that essentially is a callback to the Cozy Fort. If you remember 5 years ago. It really is 5 years ago now. 2025 now, 2020, the pandemic. But I'm not literally draping a quilt over my head, but the element of the Cozy Fort is still with us. Okay, great. Thank you for joining us live, and we will start this program in 5 minutes. Let me give you a shot out the window, but before I do that, let me give you a look at we will eventually get to this coming spring. Oh, I meant to do that. Let me jot that down real quick. Let me do a couple scribbling to myself before I take my walk. Thank you. We'll start this live program. We have almost 600 live viewers and continuing to pour in. I always point that out just because I think people watching in replay maybe don't realize that there's a sizable group that are here live. It's not just 13. So I like to comment on that just to give context for the majority of people who watch these in replay. Okay, thank you. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Thank you for watching this program live. Hot mic. Okay, you are emphasizing the video elements. You're visualizing the visuals You're not only visualizing the visuals, you're showing the visuals. You're reminding people how beautiful these areas are. And you are not going to rush through them. You don't need to get the dike. You don't need to get to the dike stuff. You don't need to get to the spreading ridge, triple junction stuff. That's Saturday, right? That's Saturday. But we don't need to get there. Slow yourself down and enjoy today. Today is supposed to be a combination of detail from the rollback plus visuals. Don't rush the visuals, boy. Okay, do that little sheet you were going to do quick. I'm still here. Haven't even taken my walk yet. See you in a sec. A pleasant good afternoon to you all, and welcome to this episode. This is episode J, entitled More Rollback Magmas. Yeah, this is part 2. So the last episode we did was 5 days ago on Saturday, the last Saturday of 2024, and Happy New Year. Here we are at the beginning of 2025, and it's a second installment of thinking about rollback magmas. You're like, I think I got it. Why are we doing this again? Like, I understand what rollback is. I understand the tectonic model where there's an oceanic plate that's broken and then it's rolling back, and then there's this hot mantle blasting in the base of the crust and making these magmas. And I this is you talking, and I know exactly what we did last time. We had a 52 to 44 million year old age progression from northeast to southwest across Washington. Let's move on. I thought about moving on, but I want to be detailed today. I want to visit some places that I have carefully selected for you that are part of the rollback magma story, presented by geology professor Jeff Tepper, who's in the live chat. And so today is more Jeff Tepper, but it's also a bunch of Gary Paul. So I don't know if Gary's with us or not, but Gary Paul is all over the video clips and all over the photographs. I'm especially excited to share some new photos from Gary with a new approach that may turn out to be very popular this winter. I'm not sure. We'll see what you think. But we are spending an extra episode, a second episode on rollback magmas, and we're even talking about Breakoff yet again. So it feels like I'm just kind of stuck. Some of you might be thinking this. Well, let's move on. Let's start the Cascade Volcanic Arc. Well, in a way, I'm setting up the Cascade Volcanic Arc by drilling down to some geochemistry detail and geographic detail that will help us appreciate the Cascade Volcanic Arc once we get there. That was my introduction, everybody. I go to Docu the Document camera, and we know that Thursdays at noon and Saturdays at 8 a.m. Pacific time is our routine for the rest of the alphabet. I'll see you next, less than 48 hours from now, Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And here we are, first Thursday of 2025, and we're heading to this next episode here. We've got at least 2 more blue episodes. And by now, most of you are aware that we have a coloring system for the decades. We started older than 60 million years ago building the basement. We got into some 50s with Seletse and the Swak Formation. We've been in blue, we've been in the 40s for quite some time, and we are starting the Cascade Volcanic Arc during this blue time. Here we are with the Tepper Trilogy. We're at letter J. We're still in this trilogy, and we're kind of still back and forth between Breakoff magmas and rollback magmas. And by the time we get together on Saturday morning, we will be transitioning to the initiation of the Cascade Volcanic Arc. Do you need a hook? Do you need a teaser for coming back on Saturday? I have innocently fallen into a disagreement, and it's a cordial and positive and civil disagreement, but it's a disagreement. And the root that I've just recently stumbled into, and I'm very excited by it, and I will have the right tone on Saturday, is what is the name of this oceanic plate when we first start the Cascade Volcanic Arc? And you're like, isn't the name the Farallon? And then some of you might be, I don't know, isn't this the Juan de Fuca? Is that what you start calling it when it starts subducting to make the Cascade Volcanic Arc? Like, what other options are there? Tune in on Saturday for episode K, which I think I will call Ridge Migration. And it's good. It's juicy. There's differences of opinion, and there are major ramifications to this thing that I keep nibbling at, but I have finally broken through to something that I can get my teeth into. And I'm excited to do Saturday's show. I'm excited to do this one too, but I'm especially excited, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I've got a couple of days to figure it out. So I'm doing both. Basically these two episodes, Thursday and Saturday, are happening so closely together that I'm basically planning 2 episodes at a time. So I already have a basic idea of what I want to do on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, very good. So that's where we are headed. But today we're still with Rollback Magmas. And I want to continue with the paper shuffling. It's comforting to me. I think it's effective in many ways under the document camera. That's my decision. But I'll be flopping back and forth between the document camera and Circle Cam, where we look at the second monitor. Let's do that quickly. And before I forget, as I typically am doing now, I'm reminding you that there are new papers every time we have an episode. And here we are for episode J, and you'll notice that most of these are posters, students of Jeff Tepper, University of Puget Sound, going back to 2007, all the way until Jeff's last semester of teaching in the spring of 2021. And both student White and student Gallagher did posters in the Wenatchee area. We will be highlighting the Wenatchee area today. There's also Jeff's poster where he first presented the rollback ideas at a GSA meeting in 2016. So you have this as a basic poster that you didn't have before. So the White poster, I think that's Audrey White's poster was just posted a couple hours ago. So even if you visited yesterday or the day before, I post these things over the previous 3-4 days before one of these live streams. So things are breaking even as we roll into the new show. Okay, well, let's go back and forth between the document camera and the Circle Cam. So if we go to Circle Cam, I have some notes to remind myself what I want to do. And yeah, I want to do some papers. So I like the nice, tidy nature of the Siletzia suture, the Breakoff belt, and the Idaho slab curtain all being lined up. They're in a parade, essentially. They're all ready to march down Main Street. And so I've grouped those 3 concepts really for the first time, even though we've discussed each of them. So you can think of this first thing as a review, but you can also think of it as a new way to package the Siletzia suture, the Breakoff belt, and the slab curtain, which is now underneath Idaho. Let's use some papers to bring the point home. Papers. So we start with the accretion of Siletzia. We're bored by it by now. We know. Siletzia is a docking here starting 51 million years ago. This is Washington and Oregon and Northern California originally. The Yakutat is going to slide north to Alaska. In Washington today, we know that our green line is the Siletzia suture. We know that the red line are our Breakoff belt magmas. We have high precision dates on many of these magmas now. Last Thursday, we spent the entire period, the entire session, looking at the Teanaway Formation. Each of these are bimodal volcanic units. And today, I'm revisiting one more time, just at least briefly, the Teanaway basalt and the basalt of Summit Creek. And this is misleading because we now realize there are rhyolites with the Teanaway and there are rhyolites with the Summit Creek as well. In fact, all of these Breakoff belt magmas that beautifully mirror the Siletzia suture are bimodal in nature. More coming on that in just a second. Bimodal means that we have mafic and felsic magmas. We have hardly any intermediate magmas whatsoever. So there's a lot of black rocks and there's a lot of pink rocks, low silica, high silica. I'm going quickly because we've done this a number of times. Vindman's Bakery is in the house. You've got to love it. Siletzia suture, green. Breakoff belt, red. But then the plot thickens because we have green, we have red, we have a northern and southern margin to those 2 guys. And if we go inland, approaching the Rocky Mountains, there's yet a third thing that has the same geometry, the same organization. These 3 guys are ready to do the march down Main Street. So I'm grouping Siletzia, the Breakoff belt, and the slab curtain as one coherent story. I'm slowing down just slightly. The slab curtain is not at the surface, it's in the subsurface. The slab curtain is under Idaho. It's not at the surface. It's in the subsurface. Here's the suture. Here's the breakoff belt. And when we look at a map from Spencer Fuston from Houston, we can see under the surface that there is an oceanic slab that extends from the modern Cascadia Trench, like today's trench, all the way back approaching Georgia. And yet, presumably, that Farallon plate used to exist all the way over here to, whatever, New England, but a piece of it is missing. What happened to that piece? It broke off. It broke off, and a part of it is underneath Idaho. So not only the cross-section shows the geophysics, the tomography, but maps like this also show this nice little tidy brown thing, the Idaho slab curtain, which is in perfect harmony with the green and the red line. And so late yesterday, last time in other words, we talked about Siletzia accreting, the suture being here, the Breakoff belt opening up starting 51 million years ago, the Breakoff belt getting wider and wider as this broken Farallon plate sinks, heavily weighted by eclogite, apparently, weighted somehow so that the thing starts to sink, sinking to the point where it eventually is going to become a vertical slab underneath Idaho. So are we talking about rollback? Not yet. Well, didn't rollback happen during that story? Yes. But as a teacher, I feel like breaking out, no pun intended, getting these three guys to work together as one narrative, which we just finished doing, and then adding the rollback, which is happening at the same time, but to me, it's not quite as tidy. At least I haven't found a way to present it that's nice and simple from what I think this is nice and simple. Siletzia suture, Breakoff belt, Idaho slab curtain. There's a northern and southern edge to all three of those guys. And yeah, the Breakoff belt is originally narrow. It gets more and more wide, like a garage door. Oh, hello. Like a garage door. This is the garage door that's up in the above your car in the garage, but you hit the power button and the garage door starts to close. Like you've parked your car. This is the garage door that's eventually going to close and seal off your car from the thieves out in the parking lot. Well, as this garage door is sliding into position, we're exposing more and more of the roof or the pink fiberglass insulation in the attic of your garage. And more of that is becoming apparent. Okay? Let's go to CircleCam and get some more images to work with that. Yes? Breakoff. Got it. Aha. So it's one thing to have cartoons. And hopefully you see it now. I don't think we're going to do much more with the Breakoff belt mechanically like that. So if you're totally sick of it and you got it 4 episodes ago, I think I'm done. I think I'm done with those three things working together. But I want to go to a couple of places that are demonstrating beautiful Breakoff belt magmas. It's not just north of Ellensburg, the Teanaway. There are other places as well. Slow down. So many of you know this guy's name by now. There's Alberta Gary, but there's also Backcountry Gary. And I didn't know Gary back during the pandemic, but Gary was a regular viewer, retired Forest Service employee, trail crew for many years in the Chelan district, then moved over to Darrington, moved into administration, heavily involved, very, very well known by many backcountry people, Forest Service, Alpine Lakes Wilderness, all sorts of things. And Gary takes stunning photographs. And so when this guy, Gary Paul, in the live chat 5 years ago, during the pandemic, started sending photos like this, I'm like, who is this guy? I've got to meet him. And I never did meet him until the pandemic restrictions eased a little bit, and I started doing these pop-up geology things. So Gary started sending me photographs like these, especially when I was starting to try to teach myself exotic terrains. He not only had the photos, but he had the geography, he had the geology. He is a former geology student at the University of Washington. So, I mean, you can take the photo away and still get all sorts of things from Gary's photographs. So the Gary Paul photographs have been featured on this YouTube channel for 5 years. But there's a new twist which has been created in the last few days, and we'll see if you like it. I shared it kind of in the moment last time. Let me show you the email that I sent to Gary a few days ago. Oh man, did I not show that? Okay, I guess I didn't. Wait, I did. Where is this thing? Oh, so this is a photo that came in last night from Gary Paul. Thought I'd send this to you, Nick. It's only blue, but I was excited to find such a nice scan of Mount Thompson in the slide file. You saw this on Instagram the other day. It's located about 4 rugged miles northeast of Snoqualmie Pass, about, all blue Natchez. Okay, so Natchez is one, the Natchez Formation is one of the Breakoff belt magmas. And Gary is not only still taking photographs and still hiking like a maniac, but he's also scanning photos of slides that he took 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so this just came in last night from Gary. And this Natchez Formation, 4 rugged miles north of Snoqualmie Pass, is one example. There's going to be a lot of this today. Am I killing time? No. I'm trying to help many viewers see how beautiful and magical these places are that we're talking about. I mean, some of us who have experience in Washington know how gorgeous this place is, but occasionally I catch myself and go, I need to show some more photos or video clips. We are very, very lucky to have this kind of scenery within a day's drive, or oftentimes the trailheads are a couple of hours from our backyard. Yeah, so thank you, Gary. This is a Natchez Formation. Everything is blue here in this photograph. And the Natchez, you might remember from the Mike Eddy interview last time, he said, I'm bothered by the Natchez. The Natchez is not bothered by this unconformity. Everything else radically changes. 50 million years ago when we accrete Silesia, and the Breakoff belt magmas are all firing up because of this major change. But the Natchez seems unfazed by that. He's like, there must be something with this offset on the Street Creek Fault, etc. Okay, here's the photo I sent a handful of days ago. Hi, Gary. Do you have 3 favorite photos that meet these requirements? All of these units in one photo. Grello, orange, blue, red, maybe even purple. If you send me the photos, I can do the colored labels. If that works, and I show 3 Gary photos this Thursday that are color-coded, maybe that will become a new thing if the viewers love it. So again, I not only want to show backcountry photos, courtesy of this guy Gary, but I want to use our color scheme. And especially as when we finally get out of blue and get into green, red, brown, and purple, we will be kind of repetitive about these colors and have them seared in our mind. I still hesitate, just like I did right now, about the color order. We've been in blue so long and kind of forget about the color scheme. But I think you know what I'm after, and I wondered if Gary could come through. Here's the first one. Here's a photo, Nick, of Vesper Peak. It's located on the Sultan South Fork Stillaguamish Divide. We flew right past it with Pat the pilot. Okay, so Gary sends this photo. Here's the view to the east from the summit of Vesper Peak. We can all agree it's a beautiful photograph. Uh-oh, now Gary's tossing in some yellow dashed lines, which is not something he did a lot of in those other photographs. Ready? Okay. I love this. I got to go full screen for this. Look at this thing. So Gary, by email that I'm not sharing with you, said, my God, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. To find and to go through all my photos and find one that's got a bunch of different colors in it. But this looks like Jesse, Gary's son. And above Jesse, there's gray. Could be Grello. Here's more Grello. And in order that we've been going, here's orange. Everything here is swak, locally known as chuckanut. This is the quiet swamp. Then we continue the order. We finally get into blue. This is the Breakoff belt. The Barlow Volcanics, the Barlow Pass Volcanics are part of the Breakoff belt. And then we're looking ahead in the alphabet. What's next? Once we finally get out of blue, we're going to get into green. This whole Vesper Peak is a Pluton that's firmly in green, 35 million years old. Down here in the hole, there's another Pluton, the Index Granite. Very popular Nick on the Rocks episode that just appeared or premiered a few days ago, by the way. More Index Granite in the distance. Here's a little Natchez. I didn't even notice, Gary, till right now. So another Breakoff unit tucked way in the corner here. Red is in the 20s, the roaring 20s. So Gary, A+. You could have just sent that photo and that would have been fine. And you have limited time. I don't want to put pressure on you. But as we go through the alphabet, if there's more and more of these rainbow, these multicolored labeled photographs, I'm excited. This might be a new hallmark of this particular alphabet that we're working on together. Great job. Thank you, Gary Paul. Yeah, I zoomed in even more to really get it. Okay. Nice. Well, got another email shortly after that one. Well, I got one more done tonight, Nick, and we'll try to do one final one in the morning. The top area is Garfield. It's a past of Eastern Melange Belt, Grello. I might have given it too much real estate on the pic, but hard to tell at my map scale. Tabor's map shows the Ohanapakash, green, as Oligocene, and might be a bit old on the main part of the Snoqualmie batholith, which I'm calling red. Interestingly, they have mapped part of the Snoqualmie batholith as early Pleistocene into the mid-Miocene. So that's not going to be red. I just noticed that on the map a couple months ago. So it's in the Cascade Pass family era. Putrid Pete's Peak is located about half a mile or so west of exit 42, right above I-90. Okay, so you want to see another rainbow labeled Gary Paul photo as we unveil this new gimmick? I hope you're excited as I am. I'm really excited. All right, I like showing these in stages. So here's the photo taken from the summit of Putrid Peak. View north, okay? We got different units. It's not, oh, wait a minute. I thought we were in the Cascades. If you're missing the point of these photos, most everybody, including myself, drives through the Cascades and go, yeah, a bunch of Cascade lavas crossing the Cascade Range. Must be a bunch of eruptions of lavas. I just assume it's all lavas from Rainier or something. And you're like, Jesus, you thought that? Well, not quite that much, but I didn't have an appreciation until this winter for all of these old stories with such different tectonic stories. And we haven't even gotten to green, red, and yellow yet. Brown. Okay? So, I don't know. Maybe you got predictions here. Oh, my God. Isn't this great? Now we got purple for the active cone, Glacier Peak volcano. We've got some dacites and andesites that are younger than 1 million years old. So that's the modern cone-ish in the foreground. So we're saving that till the spring. Snoqualmie batholith, 25 million years old, but here's the same Snoqualmie batholith that here is mapped as far younger. Ohanapakash, green, gray/grello, eastern melange. You gotta love it. I zoomed in even more. I'll be very interested to watch the replay when the live chat shows up hours later and see what kind of reaction you have. Maybe I'm the only one excited about this. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love the Gary photos with the yellow labels. There's a huge benefit for that look. But customized labels by color for this alphabet, I think, will continue to have power for us as we move ahead in the alphabet and even look back. And we're studying red, and then we go, oh my God, there's some orange in there? And we remember some of the stories from orange. Yes, the Barlow Pass volcanics are Breakoff magmas, as well as the Natchez off to the margin there. So Barlow Pass, yeah, it looks different now. It's not just a map. These gorgeous photographs on ground with backcountry hiking, which many of us have a hard time doing now at our advanced age. So back to the concept of Tepper. If I go back to these two guys, now that we're remembering that those beautiful photos are highlighting some Breakoff melts, here's the garage door opening, and our Breakoff belt is getting wider and wider as we have the garage door close after pulling in from going to a trip to Costco, which I've never done in my life, by the way. Humble brag. 50 million years ago, Breakoff belt is narrow, wider, wider. This is the garage door, slowly sinking. The tablecloth is going off of the table, and it's sinking into vertical position off the edge of the dining room table on the Idaho-Montana line. We're ignoring this today. We will not be ignoring this on Saturday. Farallon slab continues to roll back to the west and steepen. Magmatism becomes widespread in Washington and Oregon by 36. That's Saturday. Got it? Got it? Here is Gene Humphreys, a slide from Jeff Tepper a few years ago, the modern subduction of the Farallon, of the Juan de Fuca plate that is generating today's Cascade Volcanic Arc, which we have not done yet. A detached Farallon slab hanging vertically underneath Idaho. This used to be connected here, and the break is right in here. Feeling good? That was a combination of review plus a new way to package those three concepts, and I hope you're feeling comfortable with that. Here's a new way to transition then between the Breakoff magmas, and I'm choosing the Teanaway and the Summit Creek lavas down by White Pass as our two case studies for the Breakoff, which we've already looked at. We're not going to look at that again. We're not going to go to the Teanaway lavas again. We're not going to go to the Teanaway feeder dikes and the gold and the Ellensburg blue agates. We're not going to go to the rhyolite and the breccia of the Teanaway formation. We're not going to go down to the Summit Creek, crumbly-looking, ugly-looking basalt netted up on the west side, just to the west of the summit of White Pass, U.S. Highway 12. I showed those videos already, and there's some rhyolites up there as well. I'm not going to do that. But I'm reminding you of those because we're going to contrast them now geographically and geochemically with two of the many rollback units. I've got visuals, a lot of visuals, including video clips for you from the Golden Horn, Pluton, and the Wenatchee Pinnacles. I've chosen those two because I have rich collections of visuals from those two places. But we will be thorough here and look at other rollback locations. Very good. Docky, go to the papers. Hang on. So I introduced this last time. There's a Tepper trilogy. There's not a paper yet on the Breakoff belt magmas, but there's plenty of posters waiting for you at the website. This paper that we're looking at again today was based on a bunch of student posters. And at the website, all those new posters for today's episodes are UPS student posters talking about rollback. And the paper that works with that looks like this. Came out in 2023, and we continue to highlight some of the work of Jeff Tepper and his students in this paper. So, of course, that paper is also there, connected to the last episode, not today's episode. This is where we're headed in the Tepper trilogy. So there are some magmas tied to the first early days of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, and that's coming this Saturday and next Thursday. And there is a paper for that already in print. We haven't really gotten to this initiation of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, but that's where we're headed with the Jeff Tepper trilogy. I just feel like I want to help you see where we are so that we don't get lost in the weeds so much. The weeds are important, but I want to also make sure you can get a sense of where we are going. Okay, I redrafted this because I want to, for the rollback now, start at 52 up in northern Idaho, and I want to go all the way to 44. I know the Cascade Volcanic Arc starts 46 million years ago, but I want to go to 44 because that is the last gasp of our rollback of the Farallon plate as it sinks and drops and eventually leaves its mark with this age progression, this northeast to southwest age progression. And so the Golden Horn batholith is part of this pattern, and the Wenatchee Pinnacles are part of this rollback picture. Do I need to try this again? I'll do it very quickly. Remember my two hands, hot mantle trying to get to the surface. It typically cannot, but if we have a broken Farallon plate, then this hot mantle can take advantage of this broken plate, and as my fingertips, as my fingernails start to roll back or drop down or droop, 52, 51, 50, 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, 44 by the time we get to Wenatchee, that's what we mean by rollback magmas. It's a tectonic model to explain this beautiful and striking age pattern that we didn't know about before Jeff Tepper started getting precise uranium-lead dates on these Eocene magmas from northern Idaho all the way into central Washington. I've got another way to do this, and I want to keep score, so this is kind of a scorecard here. We just got done talking about Breakoff belt magmas. There are the two examples, and I'm reminding you that they're bimodal. Basalt and rhyolite dominate in the Breakoff belt. We're going to see with the video clip talking to Jeff Tepper that the general geochemistry of the rollback magmas are not bimodal. They are ADR. There's a noticeable lack in basalts with these rollback magmas, but there is plenty of andesite, dacite, and rhyolite. And we can even throw in rhyodacite if you like, which is a boundary between the dacite and the rhyolite. And just looking ahead, when we finally get to near trench magmas, which is starting on Saturday, I want to go to Pilchuck and Bald Mountain, which are paraluminous, no big deal. And finally, when we get the Cascade Volcanic Arc started up, I know that I want to use these two for the early days of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, because when I asked Jeff Tepper this summer, can we go out and make a couple videos to prepare for the Cascade A to Z Livestream series, he said, sure. I'm like, where do you want to go? He says, we're going to Tamanoas Rock. I'm like, where's that? I've never heard of it. And so we filmed a video there looking at hornblends and the Tamanous rock magmas and talking about adakites for the first time on camera this summer. And then we got together a couple weeks later and I said, where are we going now? He says, Granite Falls. And that was the Mafic Enclave video. So we're going to take advantage. This is Saturday at least. We might get really into this and go 2 letters with this. I'm not sure. But when we finally get there, so there's both basalt, andesite, dacite, and rhyolite for these. So can you kind of see that we have 4 bins that we can put our Eocene magmas into? And part of the contention or difference of opinion is does Pilchuck belong here? Does Pilchuck belong here? And so on. No, that's Saturday and beyond. Okay, that was satisfying for me to do. That's new. I don't know if you like it. This also is new and was kind of satisfying for me to do. Instead of that little tiny piece of paper, I made one nice and big. And it's another way of trying to contrast between the Breakoff magma story, which we've already talked about now, a bunch. I'm not going to do it again. And the volcanic arc magmas, which involve a mantle wedge, which involve an ocean plate sinking deeply and water being forced into the mantle wedge from the subducting plate. And we're going to start that with volcanic arc magmas. You're like, I thought today was rollback. You're right, it is. Neither of these are rollback. But the main story, at least of this portion of this chalice storm, this chalice magma outbreak, is the rollback story, which geochemically is not much basalt and instead a bunch of the others. 44. I want to go to 44. I want to get to Wenatchee. I want to go to Wenatchee. Okay? We're going to go deeply now into geochemistry just a bunch, and it's not going to be me doing it because I'll screw it up. We're going to go to a video clip with Jeff Tepper recorded just a few days ago. But am I ready for that? Yeah, I am. Let's talk about the geochemistry of the difference between the rollback magmas and the Breakoff belt magmas. Here is the distribution of these chalice magmas. It's a narrow band up in British Columbia of mostly volcanic rocks, and then red is plutons, and yellow in this map from Jeff Tepper's rollback paper are lavas, and of course our rollback pattern 52 to 44 is right through here. But these magmas go all the way back to the Absaroka volcanics outside of Yellowstone Park, which many people really want to talk about, interestingly. And even back here in the Montana Alkalic province, back in Sky Coulee country, which is east of Sky Coulee country. And I see Sky is with us today. Hello, Sky. This is from Reed Lewis, Idaho State Geological Survey. Same idea. Different color scheme. But these blobs are all this chalice magma outbreak, and you're like, wow, that's weird. We don't have any of them here. We probably do. They're just covered with German chocolate cake. In Washington, same idea. Chalice, red for lavas, yellow for plutons. It screws up our color scheme, but whatever. The point of this, these are all coming from the Tepper rollback paper. Yeah, that Columbia River basalt, those flood basalts that started 17 million years ago, they're just a nuisance. They're covering up. There's a basaltic blanket that's covering up so many of these chalice magmas. We would know so much more if we didn't have this thick flood basalt cover. But now if we start talking about geochemistry, I'm getting nervous now. At least I know tantalum and niobium, and there's a valley here. There's a depletion, which indicates, looks like arc rocks in lithology and chemistry. Yeah, if we see that depletion, that's a vote for volcanic arc. But I didn't think we had an arc. I thought the chalice magmas were all over the place. They are. But you're saying that many of the chalice magmas have this niobium, tantalum depletion? Yes. So how do you explain a bunch of magmas that look like volcanic arc rocks, but they're not in a beautiful volcanic arc map pattern? That's the conundrum, and that's why I was taught in the 1980s that the chalice magmas were an arc. They were called the chalice arc. I can probably find my Meade Spiral notebook from 1987 that says that we're hiking through, we're doing a whole weekend field trip at Idaho State University looking at chalice arc magmas. They've got the geochemistry of an arc. But the map pattern and other geochemical details say it's not an arc. It's something else. And we're still grappling with the something else really is. One potential model for a portion of the chalice magmas, the rollback. We need Jeff Tepper. Where is a guy when we need him? Here he is.
Part of the reason that the chalice was enigmatic for a long time is because it looks like an arc, petrologically.
Geochemically.
Geochemically. So the spiderograms we've talked about, they all have the tantalum niobium valley depletion that says I formed in an arc. The problem is, and this showed up in the Breakoff story as well, is that if you're melting the crust and the crust is an old arc, it's going to look like an arc. And you can't use then the geochemical fingerprint to say, was the cause of melting regular subduction, or were you melting something that had previously formed in an arc but was now being remelted by a different process?
Why was that a problem in the Breakoff magmas? I thought that was bimodal.
It was, and that was what made it easier to see the story, is that we were seeing some basalts that came from the asthenosphere and had that asthenosphere signature.
Yes.
But if we didn't see those, everything else we saw looked like arc. So we had a cartoon at one point that said, there's 4 things that could be melting in the Breakoff. You could be melting the crust. That looks like arc. You could be melting the mantle wedge. That looks like arc. You could be melting the subducting slab, the plate. That looks like arc. Or you could be melting what came from below the slab, and that doesn't look like arc. But if you don't see that deep basalt, everything else looks like arc. And the problem in the chalice is we almost never see the basalt.
You don't see the basalt.
And there's at least.
Forgive me if I repeat a little bit. I can barely hear it. I don't have it turned up with volume, otherwise there's going to be an echo. So when I show these video clips, I'm happy with the volume that you have, but I can barely hear it. One of the things that Jeff's paper talks about, and I hope I'm not repeating what you just heard, is that you have arc signatures with these chalice magmas that have this age pattern, for instance, because they're picking up arc signatures from the exotic terrains that were accreted long before 52 million years ago. And so for a brief moment, as I was getting ready for today, I was all ready to go head first back into the exotic terrain stuff. and here's the intermontane, and here's the insular, and here's all these, because there was some subduction with some of those very old histories going back before Wrangellia even. We're in eastern Washington. We're picking up, in other words, these we're blasting the base of the crust with basalt, but it's not coming up through homogeneous birthday cake. It's coming up with all sorts of, you remember all that stuff, Sharon, from Colville, with all those crazy rocks at the strontium line, and Jeff has new geochemistry saying the strontium line should be drawn differently than it is more currently. Well, I really got into this. This is right before the pandemic. I caught wind of Jeff's work. I visited his poster session in May of 2019. My dad was dying at the time, so I was going back and forth with Wisconsin and coming back out here. And when I was out here, I was picking my spots to meet up with Jeff Tepper in the field, with David Jakes in Wenatchee, teaching me a bunch of local geology about the Wenatchee area. That's where we're about to head. And I was drawing maps for myself in the front porch with Bijou, and I was just trying to like, where are these places that Jeff is sampling? I love this age progression thing. So I started making my own little pencil maps to show not only the flood basalts, but put in local landmarks that I knew. I knew Highway 20 going across Washington Pass and even up through here barely. And so I chose red for a while. There's some of these Eocene magmas, these rollback magmas locations. And then a couple of years later, I saw Jeff cranking out these more professional looking diagrams and similar look, and some of his precise locations for some of these spots. And you're like, where exactly is the 47.8 million year old granite or whatever, magma, and the 50.2 and the 50.8? And then why are these outlined in black? Well, it turns out these are dates from Mike Eddy and Bob Miller and Sam Bowering and others and grad students of MIT. So even these North Cascades Eocene magmas are part of this rollback story. And so this is now enveloping the crazy Eocene A to Z and exotic terrains in my backyard 5 years ago, and even a little bit of Baja, BC thrown in. And my instinct is to want to go way back into all those lessons from Basil Tikoff and Karn Siglock and Mitch Mahalanuc and on and on and on. But this is Cascades A to Z. I can't do too much of that. We'll get sidetracked. I'm telling myself we'll get sidetracked. So one thing I did when I was really in the zone with these maps is I tried another color. I was really having a great time with the beautiful sun in the front porch in the spring and early summer of 2019. And then I started literally taking spreadsheets that Jeff Tepper was sending me and plugging in the locations. So I don't know, can I enlarge this for you? I don't think I have a digital slide of this for you. I might. So these numbers like yellow, or sorry, Lord, slow down. This number like 11, 3, 12, 17, those are just like, well, here, I'll show you. So before these things were published, Jeff Tepper kindly shared all these details. So he's like, here's one sample site, and I didn't know where that was, and I had to Google it and put it in Google Maps and everything. I was like, oh, Sherman Pass, I kind of know where that is. So each of these is a location. I'm sharing them to you because, first of all, I wrote them out for myself 6 years ago. Thought it might be fun for you to see them. But of course, just seeing this in this form is meaningless. You need to see it on a map. My point is, you've seen the maps now. You've seen the rollback. You've seen the age progression. But if you know some of these places in northern Washington, in northeastern Washington, which I barely know, Barstow. I didn't know there was a Barstow, Washington on US 395. So Tepper and his students are covering some ground. They're going way the hell up to the panhandle of Idaho to visit some of these potential rollback magmas. Again, some of you know these places far better than I do. But I wanted to share them with you anyway. And notice all of these ages are in this 52 to 44 million year age progression. Apparently these rhyolite dikes in Corbally Canyon, which are in this, those that know it, that climb from Wenatchee up to Waterville, are gorgeous and beautifully on display. I don't know why that one's in there. It's too old. We're up on the reservation. I still am dragging my feet for some unknown reason I just have not gotten myself up to the Okanagan much, and especially northeastern Washington, up Chewelah and Kettle Falls and what's that other one up at Colville? I just need to get up there, and I just haven't. But a map like this makes me want to get up there. And so even at Medical Lake, which is right along Interstate 90, so maybe these maps that have this rich detail will help you see some of this. But we are headed towards what? We're headed towards the Golden Horn Batholith at Washington Pass and Rainy Pass. And we're also headed to the city of Wenatchee and some pinnacles, some spires. And both of these locations, there's many more, but both of these locations are well known to me. And I've been highlighting them on the PBS television show recently, so I want to include some of that video. Okay? Hope you're enjoying this episode. We're approaching the top of the hour. I want to now bathe you in visuals. Gross. Yeah, we got it. We got it. 52 and eventually 44 down in the Wenatchee area. I have 900 live viewers. Thank you for being here. So let's go to the first of two case studies of the Golden Horn. You want to see it on a map first of all, Docky? Here's from a Bob Miller paper. The Golden Horn is a gorgeous pluton, magma chamber rock that's now at the surface. It violently interrupts the Hosamine Fault and the North Creek Fault, I guess, on the other side. There's another major pluton right next door that the Golden Horn intruded up through. It's the Black Peak Pluton, dated now at 90 million years old. So this country is just one of many examples of where we have rollback magmas. And I couldn't help it. I had to go get a couple of photos from the Crazy Eocene and the Baja BC series. This is when I was first highlighting the work of the Dream Team. And they kept saying, we've got 3 magmatic flare-ups. Do you remember this? And there's compression for sure, making these magmas, the Mount Stewart batholith, the Black Peak Pluton, the 10 Peak, the 7-fingered Jack. They were mostly confused, it seemed, about these in-between times magmas. But they were very clear that the Eocene was an extensional time, a transtensional time. And the Golden Horn is just one of a number of magma bodies generated during this time in the aftermath of Seleucia's accretion. So here's that same colored map again, but now I'm highlighting Golden Horn, Cooper Mountain, Duncan Hill, 3 of the 4 highlighted magmatic flare-up Eocene time magmas in the North Cascades in the direct aftermath of Seleucia's accretion. We're going here, and then we're going down here. Okay, we get it. Good Lord. Those are dates coming from the Dream Team. I think also just setting the hook for Saturday, we go from transpression to transtension. What happened here? Yes, Seleucia accreted 50 million years ago, but is Seleucia the main reason for this abrupt change from squeezing to pulling apart? We're going to go global on Saturday as well. Compression, extension, compression. Why is this chalice time such a violent extensional time? It can't all be from just subducting a spreading ridge. It can't all be from just a simple tear of an ocean plate nearby. Coming down now, boy. Coming down now, girl. Let's go to the Golden Horn. Look at this. Come on now. This is Gary Paul. Gary, you still with us? Get settled now, Gary. We're going to talk a lot about you. We're even going to hear from you directly, so don't be bashful. One of my favorite Gary Paul photographs of all time, looking north from Blue Lake Peak. This is not rainbow labels. And we're going to drop right around Liberty Bell, right down in here, and we're going to stand with Gary and look south at Liberty Bell. And we're going to look down Early Winters Creek. And behind us will be Golden Horn itself. Let's go there. Gary. What direction are we looking right now, Gary? Can you get us oriented,
Well, we're
please?
looking down the Early Winters Creek, so roughly easterly.
Okay.
And we have Silver Star Mountain up here to our right with all the fresh snow on top. And some beautiful snags, older snags with lichen all over them.
Okay.
And we're swinging around over here to Kangaroo Ridge.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Big Kangaroo, Half Moon, Wallaby Peaks, and Kangaroo Pass at the head of Early Winters Creek.
Just soaking it in, Gary. Good Lord.
I'm soaking in the sun because I've been soaking in liquid sunshine the last 3 days at
Poor
home.
guy, socked in with rain
I
in
know
Darrington.
rivers are rising up, and
Okay.
it's like, oh, that's what clears up before we get up here.
You're high and dry now, Gary.
High and dry, getting better all the time.
And how about
Oh.
this incredible thing here?
Yeah, you know that one.
Well, I call that Liberty Bell, but are all the peaks Liberty Bell?
The peak on the right is Liberty Bell. Then we have the Concord and Lexington spires that are more spiry than they appear, and then Early Winter Spire on the far left.
Thank you. Have you been up there?
The one on the left, which is a scramble.
A scramble.
The one that's got the sheer face on it that requires a lot of rock gear to get up. That's just something I've never really gotten into messing with that much.
Sure. So there are rock climbing routes on those three faces to the right?
All of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
very popular.
Gary, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough scenery here for this episode to work. What do you think?
I was a little worried about it myself. That we might have to go down the valley where we get in the trees, because there's some really nice trees down in Granite Creek.
Good
you can look at.
God. This is incredible. Like, I've only been here a few times, but every time I come, I'm like, is this still Washington? I cannot believe this.
Well,
And it's so accessible.
I don't think we could get a better day than this. I mean, it's just spectacular, super clear air and new snow.
All that wind the last few days blew everything out of here. And we tried to film here last September, but we were smoked out. So we're especially grateful for these clear skies. So hopefully we can get Brady up here soon.
The one thing that travelers just driving over here can notice, I think, when you're thinking about Golden Horn batholith,
Yes.
is if you look down on the highway here, you can see the color on both sides of the highway, that kind of orangish pink.
Yes.
As soon as you hit that driving up from the east side, which is just past, I think, the Clipchuck campground,
Yep.
you'll see that on the side of the road, and you'll see it going down west side over Rainy Pass, and all of a sudden it just stops. And right where it stops is where you get into the Black Peak.
Interesting. Okay.
Then there's a bit of Black Peak you drive through.
Well, maybe we should put that in this show. Like, if it's that obvious, almost like a roadside geology kind of tip. Like, that's all Golden Horn behind you as well.
Yeah.
And just that kind of orangish, it's truly called the Golden Horn because of this kind of golden color. I mean, even here, I mean, it is kind of weathered, whatever, but like, it's the mineralogy of this pluton, this batholith, that gives it that gold color.
And we do have a peak up to the north of us. It's called the Golden Horn, which is literally a golden horn.
Oh, it is.
It's very gold, yeah.
Oh, people are really
And
literal around
we
here.
can't.
Okay, so there's more coming with this sort of thing. It's a way to try to take you to these places. Like, let's do a pop quiz right now. What's the geochemistry of the Golden Horn? Is it bimodal? Is it basalt and rhyolite only? Is it part of the rollback? Oh, it is part of the rollback? So it's more arc related? It's ADR and not much basalt? It turns out Jeff Tepper feels like there's votes that the Golden Horn could fit into Breakoff belt and rollback. So it gets fuzzy when you get down to that level of detail. But I'm hoping that you can remember that not only we enjoy learning in detail from Gary Paul in places that he knows very, very well, and he knows a lot of places very, very well, but today's message is that the Golden Horn is part of this rollback. It's part of this age progression, and we didn't have those dates with that kind of precision and able to fit them into this general story until the last couple of years. It's exciting. Now, programming note, I'm having a hard time keeping up. I feel like most of what I'm doing, I'm on top of, and I'm maintaining the papers and these other things and putting a thumbnail on, but I'm behind on putting stuff into the video library. So if you want to see more and the full video, those are videos where Gary and I are scouting specifically for a new episode of Nick on the Rocks. And it's being edited right now, as Brady Lawrence is on an airplane going to Japan, and yet he's still editing this last episode of the new season. So getting back to that area then of Washington Pass and Liberty Bell, there are two major plutons, one way older than the other, and it's the Golden Horn only that's part of the rollback in this particular area. It's all dating made possible by pulling out zircon minerals from these plutons and doing elaborate detail work done by Mike Eddy, Aaron Donaghy, and others who can work at these laboratories that are set up to pull out this kind of incredible precision. So yeah, Sam Bowering student Aaron Shea came up with a new date of, I think it's 90, maybe it's 89, I noticed on that other map, of the Black Peak, Gary Paul photo. The new date is 48.3 for the Golden Horn. Gray and blue for our color scheme. Blue and gray. Gray and blue for our color scheme. Also gray. Like this is basement, and then here comes the rollback magmas and or breakoff belt magmas coming up through. We need another Gary scouting moment from the other place that we filmed for the episode of Nick on the Rocks. Gary. It's too perfect, Gary. It's too perfect. That Golden Horn 48 million year old granite matches the general tint of this frickin' thing up above, Liberty Bell, and the Black Peak, I'm calling it the right thing, right? Peak granite, the Black Peak granite, darker in color, works with these guys over here. Gary's got a fly in his throat.
I think it was a cat.
Cat in his throat. And so what we have here is like, okay, who gives a shit? We got two different kinds of granite.
Sorry, Patrick.
Here's why. This is 48 million years old. That's 90 million years old. Okay, great.
This isn't even 100.
That's not even 100. That's right. Getting loopy. Late afternoon on a Wednesday.
Sun.
Here's why we really care. There are two totally different tectonic stories for these two granites, and therefore these two huge areas in the North Cascades. The 90 million year old granite was a huge batch of material that was generating molten stuff over the course of a few million years. And that huge batch of magma came up in response to a collision with Rangelia, a super terrain. So, hit Rangelia 100 million years ago, All right, that goes on for another 5 minutes of me just workshopping ideas and what we want to put into the episode. And there are 8 new episodes of Nick on the Rocks, 4 of which have already aired in December. There's 4 more coming in January. And the last one, as I mentioned, being edited right now, is the Washington Pass Battle of the Granites. And Brady sent Gary and I a little rough segment. So I want to show it to you. Probably shouldn't, but I want to show it to you anyway. It's rough. It hasn't been color corrected or whatever, but we decided to put this into the episode to compare the Eocene magma with the Cretaceous magma. The Wrangellia-related magma, the Black Peak Pluton, versus the Silesia-related magma, the Golden Horn. Let me show you this. Nobody's seen this yet, except Brady, Gary, and I. So yes, the battle of 2 granites. Different colors, different minerals, different ages, one almost twice as old as the other. But there's a story here that is incredible. The Black Peak batholith formed in response to a collision between North America and a huge island called Wrangellia. The collision happened 100 million years ago, and shortly after that collision, an incredible amount of magma welled up into the North American crust down in California and Mexico. That's right, that's magma that was originally 2,000 miles to the south of us. Then that Black Peak started moving north, all the way up here to northern Washington by 50 million years ago, just in time for another collision, this time between North America and an oceanic plateau out in the water called Silesia. That collision, 50 million years ago, created the magma of the Golden Horn batholith that came up right here. So this is an old versus young magma story, but the old magma was far traveled, the young magma is local, and they're both from major collisions with oceanic islands long ago. So Gary was standing right there with us, just the 3 of us out there filming. We hiked up from the road. And that's Gary, scouting everything and knowing exactly the best time of day to be out there. And Gary workshopping with me about what kind of geology should be put into those improv takes. We usually do like 6 or 7 different versions of me playing with different words, and Gary's giving me ideas as he's listening to these different tries. So that one will appear, I think, in late January. I saw Eric said they just posted one of the new Nick on the Rocks earlier today on YouTube. Can someone quickly find out which one that was? I'm not sure which one is premiering tonight. Today's Thursday, right? Yeah. So somebody want to go over to the YouTube channel of Cascade PBS and look up which episode is being premiered tonight, or maybe even is on YouTube right now. Not sure. Okay, good. Let's keep it going. We have just a few more. I promise we go to Wenatchee before we quit. We're not to Wenatchee yet. We're doing that now. So the slides say we're going to go down to the Wenatchee Pinnacles. We can do that. So that means we're leaving the Golden Horn, where we just were, and we're now going down to the end of the rollback, 52 to 44, and the Wenatchee Pinnacles just above Wenatchee itself. So that 2019 was the time that I was deeply into this and was starting to get to know Jeff Tepper. And Jeff said, do you have a suggestion or two of where I can go to find some new Eocene magmas that may or may not be part of the rollback story? And I said, I don't know. Let me think about it. And I thought, well, have you been to Wenatchee much? Have you looked at those rocks above Wenatchee? And Jeff said, no, I haven't even read much at all about those spires that are above the city of Wenatchee. And so let's go to the slides. So I had a great time learning what I could about this rollback story from Jeff himself in May of 2019. And I forget how it happened, but 2 months later or 3 months later, we were together. This is from Jason, the guy that flies drones in Wenatchee. This is Saddle Rock, also known as Two Bears, from the Wenatchee Piscosa people. Randy Lewis living right down here in downtown Wenatchee. And I was, like I say, I was really having a great time. I was just learning the Wenatchee stuff for the first time myself. And I knew that the Wenatchee Pinnacles, from the work that I had read before Jeff Tepper worked on it, was younger than the Squaw and the Teanaway, and was into the Chumstick Formation a little bit, but I had not met Erin Donaghy yet, and she was just starting her work with Mike Eddy at the time. I was learning from David Jakes local names like Saddle Rock and Castle Rock and Old Butte and Wenatchee Dome and Rooster Comb. I don't live that far from Wenatchee, but it was like a totally different world for me. And there were rhyodacite and gabbros and andesites. This is all from like reading what I could from certain sources. We haven't even gotten to the Ohanapikosh, which I knew nothing about. I even labeled it blue at the time. And Wenatchee Formation, I still don't know much about. Notice this, by the way. There are some magmas in the Wenatchee area, part of the Horse Lake intrusion family, that are as young as 24. As young as 24. What was the age of those weirdly young rhyolites in the Teanaway that might be tied to Mount Daniel? 24. So Tepper sent me a text immediately after that show, or maybe during the show, and said, look, I think we've got some Mount Daniel vintage rhyolites, or at least andesites, over in Wenatchee as well. So we'll follow through on that the best we can. So I met up with Jeff, and a very, very hot day, I remember, went over, and Jeff and I collected some samples right before the pandemic from Castle Rock and Saddle Rock and Wenatchee Dome. This is Wenatchee Dome, where the gold mining operation, the Cannon Mine, just south of downtown Wenatchee. Wenatchee Dome, dated now at 44. So I learned what I could. I got the new dates and the new chemistries from Jeff. He said, yep, these Wenatchee magmas, these Wenatchee pinnacles, are mostly 44 million years old. They're mostly dacite to rhyolites. Wenatchee Dome, Rooster Comb, Saddle Rock, Castle Rock. They're not all rhyodacite, they're not all dacites, they're not all pure rhyolites, but they're in that ballpark. But they fit the age progression of 52 to 44. I'm going to put them into the last days of the rollback, and there's a bit of overlap temporally and spatially between the birth of the Cascade Volcanic Arc and the last days of the rollback, but that's okay. There's a little bit of overlap, and we are overlapping into the birth of the Cascades now. We're late on a Thursday afternoon. So who did I bring in May of 2023 to film an episode? Brady Lawrence. Brady the Kid. Now, this is before Gary Paul was scouting for us, so I was over scouting, and then brought Brady, and I was just brand new to working with Brady Lawrence, who's the one-man show who does all the filming for the Nick on the Rocks episodes. And so I want to finish today showing you a complete Nick on the Rocks episode from Saddle Rock, which features the rollback story, which I didn't even mention in the episode. I didn't mention the rollback thing. It's only a 7-minute episode. But I hope that you enjoy the finish to today's episode. Saddle Rock. It premiered a year ago. Wenatchee, Washington is down there on a perfect late spring evening. And this is Saddle Rock, a pinnacle of volcanic lava that looms above the Columbia River. There's more than Saddle Rock. There's many of these pinnacles that are 44 million years old. That's a new date from new research. What kind of rock is up here? What kind of volcano story can be told by studying Saddle Rock? Hint, it's older than the Cascade volcanoes. Okay, top of Saddle Rock. This is rhyolite, and rhyolite is very stiff lava. This is not the kind of volcanic rock that you typically see in the well-known Cascade volcano line like Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens. It's a pink volcanic rock with these little white chunks inside, little smoky quartz crystals. So this is very stiff, sticky lava. And so each of these pinnacles is a rhyolite dome, a squirt of very toothpaste-like magma. It was part of a very explosive volcanic system. Saddle Rock, beautiful pinnacle. There's a whole family of these volcanic outcrops, including this one here. This is Wenatchee Dome, just like it sounds, a dome of lava. But there's a specific story about all of these outcrops. They tell the same story with age and chemistry. Let's look a little bit more carefully at this volcanic outcrop and try to put a story together. Saddle Rock, 44 million year old rhyolite. Wenatchee Dome, same stuff. Castle Rock, Black Thumb, Rooster Comb. If this is too old for the Cascades and it's rhyolite, what should we be visualizing for this area at that time? This is a welded tuff. It's the result of a pyroclastic flow, an ignimbrite, an ash flow tuff. Those phrases all mean the same thing. The most explosive, dangerous, ground-hugging hurricanes of ash, rock, gas, coming to rest, welding in place with a volcanic vent close by. This is much closer to a supervolcano story than it is a composite cone volcano. We're still trying to work out the details of if there's a supervolcano here, or where the vents are, or what the volcano actually looked like. But it's major progress to realize that all of these pinnacles at Wenatchee tell the same story. So yes, this is a volcano story, but no, this is not volcanoes standing on this landscape for 44 million years. Let's not get carried away. This is an underground story. So these pinnacles of rhyolite lava were actually underground, fingers of magma working their way up through soft sandstones. Some of them got to the surface and exploded violently. But these pinnacles are the result of eroding soft sandstone over the last 44 million years, and what's left standing? These fingers of frozen magma that today preside over Wenatchee, Washington. Okay, we're almost done. A couple final thoughts, and then we open it up to live questions and hopefully some answers. Between Jeff Tepper, Gary Paul, and myself, maybe we can answer a bunch of your questions. Docky, if you come back on Saturday, we're going to start the birth of the Cascade Volcanic Arc somehow, but it's not going to be simple, and it's going to involve this question. What is the name for this oceanic plate diving to finally get our Cascade Volcanic Arc started. It's a new angle on a question that's been bugging me and intriguing me and exciting me for the last 5+ years. So you'll have to tune in on Saturday. Also, since we're now officially in 2025, can I remind you all that we continue with our alphabet, Cascades A to Z, and work our way till the end of February? And can I then remind you that in early April, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights at 7 p.m. in downtown Ellensburg, Washington, USA, at the Morgan Auditorium, I'll be giving 3 talks, 3 nights in a row. They're totally free. There's no tickets. It's open to anybody who wants to show up. There's more than 700 seats in the auditorium. We typically get between 500 and 600 people showing up, many coming to all 3 of the talks, many casually getting together and going on field trips with whoever they want and meet during those 3 days, the first weekend in April. And then I also want to remind you that shortly after that, I'll be teaching Geology 351 the rest of April, all through May and into early June. And I will be live streaming those with students, hopefully with some of you as well, although the bosses here are making it difficult, but I'm going to try my best to get this to work so that this can be an open invitation in person or live streams or both, looking at the modern Cascades. In other words, looking at these actual cones that we have here. Been meaning to do that. I continue to get emails about, I heard about these downtown lectures, when and where and what are the dates. So that was my attempt there. My last slide before we go to you is a question, and I'm slightly nervous about the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I've been getting a handful of these emails just in the last few days. Emails like this. Hi, Nick. I noticed today your shows have advertisement. Now, when I watch in the UK. Not a problem. You do loads of work, just as long as you are getting the payments and that you know about it. Stephen in the UK. I'd say there's been 6 or 7 emails from folks in various locations. Stephen's the first one that reports that experience in the UK. Before we go to live question answer, can I have you flood the live chat right now? Are you getting ads all over these things? I've never turned on monetization for any of these video programs. When I post a video, when I post an interview, when I do a live stream, every time I post, I have to say no monetization. I don't get any money from YouTube for these programs. And if it was just Stephen, I wouldn't bat an eyelash. But if you're getting interrupted with these live streams with ads, I'm not happy about it. I don't even care about not getting the money. I just care that you're interrupted and you have to be paused on what we're doing here. So I see a bunch of no ads, so maybe I don't have to worry about this. And the few people that are dealing with ads, if you do get ads interrupting what I'm doing here, is it just me or are you getting ads for everything that you watch on YouTube? I personally have YouTube Premium, which I pay a monthly charge so that I don't have to see any ads at all. But I know most of you don't have YouTube Premium, so I'm going to see all your comments and hopefully there's a kind of a consensus reply. But that really fires me up. Again, I don't care that I'm not getting the money from YouTube. I just care that your viewing experience is interrupted, and I certainly hope that is not the case. Okay, I wanted to do that before we go to before I lose a bunch of you. So I will look at those comments. Thank you for your reply. I see a bunch of no's here, so that I'm happy to see that. And when I see some yeses, if it's mostly no's, I'm going to stop thinking about it. Okay, uppercase, please, if you're still wanting to ask a few questions. If you want to ask Gary Paul, if Gary's still with us, Backcountry Gary. If you want to ask Jeff Tepper, if Jeff is still with us. And then, of course, I will try my best as well. And as always, Your questions help steer what we do down the road, especially if a bunch of you are asking the same questions. So let's try. Lottie, why does the subducted ridge slab window continue to spread? Is the connection to the unsubducted slab that strong? That's Saturday, Lottie. We're going to deal with slab windows. We're going to deal with near trench magmas. And I don't know how to answer that question. Maybe nobody does. But we're going to be thinking hard about subducted ridges on Saturday. Thank you. Baba Yoshi, along with the breakoff and the rollback, what about the tearing of the side edges of the disconnected piece? Wouldn't that also produce magmas, or is it pretty mantle leak tight? Thank you. We have not dealt with atakites to this point. And I think there are atakites with hot mantle flowing around the edges of torn plates. So to me, it hasn't been a natural place to put in the atakite concept, but Jeff probably has an answer for you, if he hasn't answered already, that the atakites add to the story, but I'm waiting on the atakites until we start the Cascade Volcanic Arc, although for some reason I'm not sure why I'm doing that. I don't know. I kind of half forgot about them, to be honest. Okay, now we got mix of reports about the ads versus the questions. That's my fault for doing it that way. Kirk, is the divergent plate boundary that started the plate tear, that tear is that makes the rollback later? Divergent plate boundary that started the plate tear. Kirk, I don't know how to answer that except to say that when we are thinking carefully about spreading ridges offshore, I don't know, maybe it will be 2 letters. I don't know. There's a lot on Saturday. I'm excited about it. But the connection between the divergent plate boundary, the spreading ridge offshore at the same time that we're tearing things inland, I'm not ready to answer that. And I'll be thinking a lot about it in the next 48 hours. Thank you. David, can you show a cartoon that shows the rollback in relation to breakoff? Are there 2 breaks in the slab or just 1? Can I show a cartoon that shows the rollback in relation to the breakoff? Yeah, I can't find that one. I think my best cartoon from the last episode, I can't find the paper. I painted it yellow. So look for a cartoon late last episode, which I think answers your question. Jim, Gary's photo of Vesper Peak labeled at 35. There are garnet. Okay, that beyond the scope of this episode. Thank you, though. Kyle, what's going on at the south side of the rollback? Thank you, Kyle. Tune in on Saturday. Royal, so this is perfect. In other words, many of your questions are naturally going toward what I've tried to set up here. So that makes me feel good, even though you're frustrated not getting answers today. Royal Oak, the rollback chalice moves from east to west. The garage door model implies that it should start in the east and widen to the west. Why does it stop in the east? It should not. Rollback moves from east to west. Garage door start in the east and widens to the west. Your question confuses me. I think the garage door is starting in the west and widening to the east. So I don't know if you're dyslexic or if I'm dyslexic or I'm not totally getting your question. Sorry. Honey Greg, if the spreading ridge coin burst faults run southwest to northeast, why is the Golden Horn northwest to southeast? Is it a time difference? It's the same time. And I was going, up until recently, like last night and this morning, I decided to put in those full video clips. And before I decided to do that, Greg, I was going to finish today with a map of all of those dike patterns. The Golden Horn dikes, the dikes that are all through the North Cascades. And you're right, they're not all the same orientation. We'll try that a little bit on Saturday, but I don't know how to explain the different orientation of the different families of dikes. Maybe Bob Miller has an explanation in that new paper, which I think I removed once I realized I wasn't going to get to the dike orientations today. I'm down to live. Does Karin Siglock like your garage door? Thank you, Therese. I love Karin Siglock. I love Basil Tikoff. I love Stephen Johnston. I'm trying to think of other kind of against the grain imaginative thinkers. Those three come to mind. I don't know how to get their ideas into this series. I've seen that regularly. Like, what would Karin think about this? What would Basil think about this? They would have some incredibly interesting things to say, but my choice is to have some kind of narratives established with a subset of the guests on the Idaho miniseries. And it's my choice on who to amplify and who, as much as I love Karin and Westward Subduction, and she had the Cascade Volcanic Arc starting out in the water. We're accreting a terrain that already has a Cascade Volcanic Arc on it. She and Mitch have that. Like, as much as I'd love to do that, I have to think of this whole community. And I try not to sell the intelligence of our community short, but I think it would test the patience of some of us if I tried to involve all of these competing ideas. We're going to do a little competing idea business on Saturday. That might frustrate some people. And they're like, these folks don't even have it figured out. I'm going to stop this thing. I mean, that's an interesting question, I think. How do you react to controversy or disagreement? Okay, this is a tangent. My mom and dad okay, this is really a tangent. I grew up in a very harmonious household. Myself, the only boy, the pet, and my two sisters who are twins, 3 years younger than me. I think I only really saw my parents fight 2 times in my first 20 years of growing up, like actually raised voices and disagreeing. And it really shook me up to see them arguing in front of us. And so when there's disagreement in a scientific community, in a live stream series like this, I don't know. Do some people say, I'm going to stop because I'm uncomfortable? Like, these people are not agreeing. Like, I want harmony. I think of our youngest boy who was, anytime I was arguing with Liz in front of the kids, he'd be like, he would like try to be a joker and like, hey, let's lighten the mood here. Everything's fine, right? So I mentioned, I don't know why I'm mentioning all this, but typically I choose to pick narratives that work together and it's smooth sailing. And it feels like we're building stories together. But that's kind of boring. So occasionally I think I want to lean into some differences of opinion, especially if the people who are disagreeing are top-notch scientists who are also humble and gentle and nice and patient and everything else. They just have very different views on a particular topic, and that's Saturday. All right, I don't know where that came from. The 3 more and we're done. We're getting longer and longer. Ivana is with us, everybody, from New York City. Check out Duke et al. 2014. Siglock, thank you. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. I have limited time and limited scope. And I don't want to lose steam. So if I spend 2 days going off in a tangent, sometimes I get lost in the weeds. And I feel like that's one of my strengths. I never really get bogged down in the weeds because I can see the main things we're trying to do. And that's the architecture of setting up one of these live stream series of programs. Jim, does the rollback slab run into the propagation of the Walker trend and the northward migration of the Sierra magmas? Yes, I think it does. And part of Jeff Tepper's Cascade Initiation lecture that he gave here in our department in early November, before our world fell apart, he was talking about rollback in Nevada. That is probably part of this pattern. 2 more and we're done. I'm scrolling way back. Okay, what eventually happened to the slab that rolled back? It's under Idaho and that slab curtain. And if you're asking about the earlier slab that broke earlier than that, it's still down there, I guess. Bruce, it would seem to have many breaks in the rollbacks. Yeah, I think that's one of Jeff Tepper's points, that the Farallon plate, for whatever reason, is very unstable during the Eocene time. And it's prone to getting torn and broken and sinking and doing somersaults underground, basically. And we're continuing to image. We're finding pieces of that Farallon, I think, in different places under North America. And then if we go really far back in time, more than 100 million years ago, now we are talking about Karin Siglock and Mitch Mahalanik. And Spencer Fuston and Johnny Wu from Houston and Arizona are now starting to go into the lower mantle to find these older stories. Okay, we're really off. Okay, that's enough. A toast to you. Here's to you for joining us today on this snowy January 2nd in Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Here's to you. Here's to your health and the health of everyone in your community, near and far, for the new year, 2025. Here's to us. Special thanks to Jeff Tepper for helping yet again to prepare for these next 2 live streams. Thanks to Michael Eddy, who sent a beautiful email on New Year's Eve, which will be a featured part of Saturday's episode, unexpectedly. Thanks to Mike. And thanks to Gary Paul, if he's still with us. Gary, you've been such a major part of what's been going on in the last few years. We all appreciate your skill and dedication. Thank you. Okay. I think you know the schedule by now. The next time I see you will be Saturday, January 4th at 8 a.m. Pacific Time for a program probably called Ridge Migration. Thank you, everybody. I love you. Hopefully my white shirt was not too white and too full of reflective abilities. I'm a big old glacier with albedo here. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year. Hopefully no ads. Hopefully no ads. See you on Saturday morning. Goodbye.